You buy the card. You eat the chocolate. You send the flowers and celebrate the day of love. But the holiday you think you know has a story you've probably never heard. Its real story isn't written in pretty ink, but in blood. It's a story of a wild pagan festival, a defiant priest executed for love, and an emperor who outlawed marriage because he believed single men made better soldiers. It's a history soaked in animal sacrifice, bizarre rituals, and centuries of political and religious maneuvering. So, forget the heart-shaped boxes and cheesy poems for a moment. This is the story of where those traditions truly came from. This is what Valentine's Day is actually all about. The Luperci would then run around the base of the Palatine Hill, striking any woman they came across with these bloody strips of goat skin. And in the middle of February, Romans celebrated a festival that makes our modern Valentine's Day look incredibly tame. It was called Lupercalia, and it was celebrated from February 13th to the 15th. This wasn't a party for romantic love. It was a primal, chaotic festival of fertility and purification. The name itself, Lupercalia, likely comes from the Latin word for wolf, lupus, linking it to the legendary she-wolf who nursed the founders of Rome, Romulus, and Remus. The festival began at a sacred cave called the Lupercal, believed to be the den of that very she-wolf. Here, a special group of priests, the Luperci, would gather. And this is where things get bloody. They would sacrifice one or more male goats, a powerful symbol of sexuality, and a dog. For centuries, Lupercalia had survived even as other traditions faded because it was so deeply embedded in Roman culture. It was a brutal, public, and deeply spiritual event, all to purify the city and ward off evil spirits for the coming year. Now, you might have heard a version of this story where young men drew women's names from a jar to be paired off for the festival. This is often cited as the root of Valentine's matchmaking, but historians have found little to no evidence for this love lottery in ancient sources. That particular detail seems to be a much later invention, probably created to forge a clearer link between the pagan festival and the day of love that came later. The real Lupercalia was far less about romance and far more about raw, violent rites of fertility. So, how did a wild, wolf-themed fertility festival with naked priests and goat hides turn into a day for a Christian saint? The answer is a classic case of religious rebranding. And the story of the man this day was named for was even darker than the festival it overshadowed. Enter Pope Gelasius I. Around the year 494 AD, he took a stand, condemning the festival and outlawing its practice. At the same time, Gelasius declared February 14th a feast day to honor a Christian martyr, Saint Valentine. Now it's tempting to see this as a simple swap, out with the pagan party, in with the Christian feast. Many sources will tell you that Pope Gelasius replaced Lupercalia with Valentine's Day. But the historical reality is a bit more complex. There's no direct proof that Gelasius meant to create a new day of love. The feast day was established to honor a martyr's death, not to celebrate romance. The move was more likely strategic. Young couples, forbidden to wed, came to him, and he joined them in matrimony, risking his own life for the sake of their love. The truth is, the historical record is a mess. There are at least 2, possibly 3, different martyrs named Valentinus, all said to have died on February 14th in the 3rd century. Over time, their stories blurred together, but one particular legend rose above the rest, giving the holiday the romantic backstory it needed. The story goes like this. We're in the Roman Empire under Emperor Claudius II, also known as Claudius the Cruel. The year is 269 or 270 AD. Claudius was having a tough time recruiting soldiers for his legions and came to a stark conclusion. Married men made bad soldiers. He figured that men attached to wives and families were less willing to die for the empire. So, Claudius did something drastic. He banned marriage for all young men in Rome. He wanted soldiers devoted only to Rome. This is where a humble priest named Valentine enters the picture. Of course, he was eventually found out. Valentine was arrested, imprisoned, and condemned to death. But the legend doesn't stop there. While in prison, he supposedly befriended his jailer, Asterius, and miraculously healed his blind daughter. On the day of his execution, February 14th, Valentine is said to have written a final note to the girl, signing it with 3 simple, now immortal words. From your Valentine. He was then beaten, stoned, and beheaded. This powerful story, combining forbidden love, defiance, a miracle, and a tragic execution, became the central myth of Saint Valentine. While we can't be sure how much is fact and how much is fiction, it was this dramatic narrative of a man who died for love that laid the foundation for the holiday we know today. It's a story that's way more intense than a box of chocolates, right? If you're finding this hidden history as fascinating as I do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe. We dig into the true origins of all sorts of things, and you won't want to miss what we uncover next. By framing it as a day for choosing a partner, Chaucer transformed it from a solemn religious day into something much more romantic. So, how did a day commemorating a beheading become the global celebration of love? For that, we turn not to a pope or an emperor, but to a poet. The person who almost single-handedly connected Saint Valentine's Day with romance was the great English writer Geoffrey Chaucer. In the late 14th century, likely around 1382, Chaucer wrote a poem called Parliament of Fowls. The poem describes a dream where all the birds of the world gather together on Saint Valentine's Day to choose their mates for the year. Chaucer wrote the now famous lines, "For this was on Saint Valentine's Day, when every fowl cometh there to cheese his make," or in modern English, "For this was on Saint Valentine's Day, when every bird comes there to choose his mate." This was a revolutionary idea, and because Chaucer was a literary superstar, the idea caught on, especially among the nobles of England and France. The concept of courtly love was already popular, and this new poetic date on the calendar was irresistible. Aristocrats began writing romantic verses to their own loves, invoking Saint Valentine. The first surviving Valentine letter we know of was written in 1415 by the French Duke of Orleans. Imprisoned in the Tower of London after the Battle of Agincourt, he wrote a poem to his wife, calling her his very gentle Valentine. That letter is now in the British Library. What started as a line in a poem had completely reframed the holiday. The bloody story of the martyr was fading, replaced by a much nicer image of birds and knights in love. The day was no longer about death. It was about romance. The leap from a medieval poet's dream to the billion-dollar industry we have today was a long one, driven by one powerful force: commercial innovation. For centuries, Valentine's Day remained a quaint tradition of exchanging small, handmade notes. But things changed dramatically in the 19th century with the Industrial Revolution. New printing technologies made it possible to mass-produce cards, and savvy entrepreneurs saw a golden opportunity. Suddenly, you didn't have to be a poet to express your feelings. You could just buy a card,